When it comes to horse racing, you can never have too much information. With TwinSpires, you can place your bets with confidence, whether you use handicapping insights like our Brisnet speed ratings, prime power and past performances, the guidance of our experts' top picks, or just choose a name that catches your eye. Yes! No matter how you pick your horse, bet with TwinSpires. And now you can race to victory with TwinSpires tournaments.
Welcome back to the TwinSpires Jury. I'm Ashley Anderson here with James Scully and Darin Zoccali to talk our best bets and fades of the week, mainly at Keeneland. We'll look at Oaklawn Park as well, where we have Thorpedo Anna racing this weekend, but we're not talking about that race. We're going to mostly focus on Keeneland because they have the final stop on the road to the Kentucky Derby in the Grade 3 Lexington on Saturday, so we'll give our pick in that race at the end. But as always, we'll start out with our best bets of the week, and I'll go with you, James. Where are you playing that? What race is your best bet?
My best bet's going to come in the Jenny Wiley race 10 at Keeneland Saturday. It's number 7 Kehoe Beach. I certainly hope I'm optimistic she's not going to be the second choice at post time like she is on the morning line because it's a pretty deep field. Obviously, the morning line favorite in here, Excellent Truth, is trained by Chad Brown, who's won the last 3 runnings and a record 7 editions of this Jenny Wiley. But got 2 other Euros in Swaze and Jabara. And then, of course, Be Your Best and Sacred Wish just ran 1-2 in the Pegasus World Cup Filly Mare Turf. But I like Kehoe Beach, and I like her at Keeneland, and I like her coming back as a 4-year-old for Wesley Ward. And this is a filly to me that, when she switched to turf last July, she ran a head second at Ellis Park. Then she won an allowance at Kentucky Downs by 8 lengths. But off of those 2 races, I thought she took a huge step forward in her next 2 outings. She ran an allowance race, a pretty decent allowance field, I thought, in late October. Ran a mile in like 1:34 that day at Keeneland, and then came back in this Mrs. Revere for 3-year-old fillies at the end of the fall meet at Churchill Downs. Mile and a 16th test, and I just want to say I read Wesley Ward's quotes before this race. He said the only thing he was worried about was a mile and a 16th distance. He basically looked right past the competition because this filly was getting so good for him at the time. And I thought she won that race very easily. I think she's poised to take a step forward at age 4. And the thing I like about her in the Jenny Wiley is I see her as lone speed. Be Your Best, might sit second, but I don't think she's going to be putting any pressure on Kehoe Beach. I look for her to get the run on the front end with Frankie Dettori and lead wire to wire in the Jenny Wiley.
I agree with you on the potential lack of speed in her going gate to wire. I was a little surprised that Be Your Best is 6-1 on a 3-win streak coming out of the Pegasus World Cup Filly Mare Turf. I honestly like that horse at the price of 6-1. I know that she's 0 for 2 at Keeneland, but that was when she was with a totally different trainer. So I'll take her at that price, but Kehoe Beach looks really good as well. And I know, Darin, you have thoughts on the morning line favorite, so we'll save that for our next segment, our fade of the week. But Darin, tell me about your best bet of the week.
Yeah, really going price shopping in race number 8, which is an entry-level allowance for 3-year-old fillies going a mile and a 16th on the turf. Number 9, Miss Linnell, is coming in off of a sprint at Turfway Park. The last 2 races, both over the synthetic surface there, neither of them are very good. But the races on turf, with the exception of the Jessamine, are substantially better. Horse was 3rd in a good allowance event that produced the next out allowance winner 3 starts back. Broke her maiden at Kentucky Downs, was 2nd. Turf sprinting at Ellis Park upon debut. So Miss Linnell, I think getting back over the turf course and going back from 6.5, stretching on out, you're getting a look here at that maiden victory at Kentucky Downs, where she did rally from well off the pace with her rider, Corey Lannery, aboard. Shows really good turn of foot here and finishes up with a flourish. I thought this was definitely an encouraging performance. And getting back to her preferred surface at a really big number. You take a look at the rest of the field and some of the shorter prices. I think there's certainly some valid questions. The 5 Burning Pine for Wesley Ward has not been seen since Royal Ascot. The horse has 1 North American start. It was 4.5 furlongs on the dirt. The only other try at Ascot was a 6 furlong turf event. The 8 Bessie Abbott from Mark Cassian is coming in off an 8-month layoff. Really have no clue how good she's going to be. She was 50-1 when she broke her maiden in Ireland. And the 11 Al Jafara is another horse that's coming in off a substantial layoff, going to the barn of Chad Brown. So this is a race that I think you could find some questions with the horses that are going to take a lot of money. And I thought this was a good spot to try to take a big swing at a number.
I agree with you, Darin. I honestly thought that the 7 at 30-1 actually tied as the longest shot if you include the also eligibles if they were to draw in. But Dear Louise is coming off the pace and won on debut. I know the speed figures are a little light, and last start out at Fairgrounds didn't have the best showing, but can improve second off the layoff. I think going for a big price is certainly, this is the race to do it, because you can, as you mentioned, you can make a lot of reasons for why you can play against these shorter prices with the longer layoffs. And Chad Brown with this horse that's first time out for his barn, coming over from France, which is very similar to his morning line favorite in the Jenny Wiley as well. Well, I will take it to Friday at Keeneland. I'm going to the Limestone Stakes, admittedly a pretty tough race. I decided to play for my best bet, and I'm going with number 12, Killwin at 8-1, a twirling candy 3-year-old who won her first 2 career starts, a 5.5 furlong maiden at Ellis Park. She came from off the pace that day to win by 2 lengths and a final time of 101 and change, and then she jumped up to stakes competition, won the Untappable Stakes at Kentucky Downs at 6.5 furlongs, which we're watching here. And then last out, we saw her in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies Turf racing at a mile. She sat close to the pace setter and then weakened in the furlong grounds. Now coming off a bit of a layoff, which is a little bit of a concern, but dropping in class. Truthfully think she's the classiest filly in this field, and there's a lot of speed here. I think she can come from off the pace, even though she has this outside post. I'm not too concerned about it, and ultimately looked at her and number 4 Abiento at 9-2, but truthfully thought that Killwin's just a little bit better, and both are coming off lengthy layoffs coming out of that Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies turf. But I like the 12 Killwin at the price I'm getting at 8-1.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty savvy pick, because that Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies turf was an outstanding field. I thought it was a very strong addition. The winner was, she was just a super classy filly for Aidan O'Brien. And we've seen Nitrogen and Vixen and a bunch of these fillies come out of that race already. Unfortunately, Mayday Ready went overseas. Hopefully that doesn't mess her up this year. But I thought that was a really strong group of 2-year-old turf fillies. And this Killwin, ran 5th there. She got beat 4 1/4 lengths by Lake Victoria. So cutting back to a sprint, I wouldn't be surprised to see her run big. Bresciardo won a race on Tuesday also. He always is geared up for Keeneland. That's a pretty good pick, I think, at that price too, 8-1 on the morning line.
Darin, any thoughts? I was waiting for you to say I picked a tough race.
Yeah, it is tough. I do like the outside draw in the turf sprints. I think it gives the rider an opportunity to kind of see what's going on. I do like her versatility. She's run well close to the pace. She's also run a stake, as you mentioned, coming from far back off of it. This is going to be getting back to the performance on her debut where she won going 5.5. So she's getting back to that initial distance as well. The layoff is the concern. Rusty Arnold doesn't have the best numbers off the bench. So, some naysayers could certainly point to that. But I think there's any one of 5, 6, 7 that could win this race, and Killwin is definitely on that list.
There's a few that are going straight to the front who I liked as well. But honestly, I almost made She's So Spicy my fade of the week at 4-1, moving up in class here. But let's move over to our horses that were fading at a short price and go back to that Jenny Wiley race. So Darin, tell me why you don't like number 1, Excellent Truth.
Yeah, it's just the price for the value. She hasn't been seen since July. She's coming off a second place finish behind a very nice horse in a Group 1. So I certainly do respect that. I respect the fact that she's going to Chad Brown. But when you take a look at this field, the quality of the field, I really do like James's selection of Kehoe Beach. I think she's got a huge pace advantage over the majority of this field. But in terms of Excellent Truth, I just don't know exactly how good she is. Her last 2 efforts have come over soft ground. Most of her better performances have come over ground with a lot of give in it. It certainly rained earlier on this week at Keeneland, but the course is already upgraded to good. A good turf course at Keeneland is really a firm course overseas. So I'm just not sure how she's going to handle the ground, the tighter turns, and the fact that she can have to navigate through traffic from that inside post. So at a short price, I thought that Excellent Truth was a little bit vulnerable in this spot, just given the caliber of the field and the dynamics of the race.
I almost went with her as well, but I was a little scared fading Chad Brown in this race because he's won the last 3 and 6 of the last 7. But as you mentioned, the soft going that she's won over does make me concerned with what she's going to get potentially on Saturday with the turf. So I definitely agree with you trying to beat this horse and the Jenny Wiley. James, any thoughts on this, or want to turn it over to
Yeah,
your
I
fate of
no,
the
I
week?
agree. She's going to get overbet, and I mean, I'm on Keogh Beach, obviously, but I took a long look at. I mean, that Jabara who ran a big race, went second in the Group 1 Falmouth, and had a troubled trip, and her comebacker could improve. And even this Crisford horse, Soise, has gotten pretty good this winter in Dubai. So I'm not even sure she's the best international horse. And with that Chad Brown in her corner, I could easily see her being shorter than 5-2. So I like it. My fate of the week is going to come at Oaklawn Park in race number 9. This race 9 at Oaklawn on Saturday. And my fade's number 2, Tiz Wicked Strong, the 3-1 favorite on the morning line. But race 9 is part of the late pick 5 sequence at Oaklawn that includes a pair of odds-on favorites in the 2 stake races. Thorpedo Anna heads the 7-horse field in the Apple Blossom, and Booth will be going for his 3rd straight win this meet and over a short field in the Count Fleet. But I do think race 9 offers, in my estimation, the opportunity for value because the morning line favorite, Tiz Wicked Strong, looks vulnerable to me. He doesn't appear to be a fan of Oaklawn Park or the 1.16 distance. And I wanted to mention there's a pair of double-digit long shots in this race being ridden by hot jockeys. Number 11, Gluckstadt at 10-1 with Francisco Arrieta, and number 9, Redbird Nation at 20-1 with Tyler Bacon. Francisco Arrieta has won 26 races over the last 11 racing days at Oaklawn Park. Has surged to the top of the standings with 50 wins, one better than Christian Torres entering this meet, arguably the hottest jockey in the nation right now. And Tyler Bacon, if you haven't heard the Bacon story, he grew up riding ponies on an Crow Indian reservation in his native Montana. He's 17 years old. He took out his license last year, rode at Fauner Park and Prairie Meadows last year. He lost his bug earlier this month, so he's a journeyman now. But he's 4th in the Oaklawn standings with 46 wins, and he's going to move his tack when Oaklawn ends to Churchill Downs and see how he does against the big guys there during the spring-summer meet. So wanted to give a little shout-out to Arrieta and Bacon for their outstanding Oaklawn meets so far. And I'm taking on Tiz Wicked Strong in race 9.
I like it. I'm curious the pace in this race because I'm looking. I mean, you've got the 8 going to the front, and Redbird Nation too. You mentioned, I think probably goes to the front, but I don't see a lot of speed. So if you have an off the pace runner like your fade, the 2, I definitely think this is a good chance. This is not the ideal pace, I would think, for Tiz Wicked Strong. See, I'm taking it back to Keeneland now. I think we're only going to be looking at Keeneland going forward, and I'm going to take it to race 5 in allowance. I'm going with number 10, States Rights, playing against States Rights at 7-2. This is a 3-year-old by Constitution who broke his maiden at Keeneland, racing a mile back in October, but then faced Allowance Company. This is the maiden win for him, but then faced Allowance Company, finished 4th as the favorite at Fairgrounds, and then he stretched out to a mile and a 16th and was second to Flying Mohawk on the turf at Fairgrounds last out. Could improve off the layoff here, racing on Lasix a second time, but speed figures wise, I thought ranked a little bit lower. There were some horses I really liked in here, like the 9 Assertiveness at 9-2, coming off a maiden win in his first start on the turf at Gulfstream for Todd Pletcher. Had an 89 Brisnet speed figure, beating 11 rivals that day, breaking from an outside post. I also thought, even though Sing Sing's coming off a long layoff for Mark Casse has had a really hot start to the Keeneland meet, and I thought numbers-wise, Sing Sing looked really good, and even a long shot with solid left, first time on the turf for Brian Lynch. So there's a few I would certainly play over States Rights here, who hasn't been able to win since facing winners.
Yeah, I think a lot of this race is also going to come down to what the two horses off the layoff, how they come back. Macero certainly had a couple of good moments earlier on in his career, ran a solid third in a good allowance before being put away for the winter. Not this time, has turned out to be one of the better stallions that we've seen in the country, and get pretty much throws runners on just about any surface, any distance. So Macero, I thought, was one that, depending on how he comes back, and then of course Warlander, who broke his maiden at Kentucky Downs and certainly ran a more than respectable fifth in the Grade Two Bourbon last year, is making his first start since October. But yeah, there's some talented runners in here. States Rights is kind of the default favorite off being a beaten favorite to Flying Mohawk, as you mentioned last time out. But definitely don't think by any stretch he lays over the field.
Now, I will say about States' Rights, he broke his maiden on Keeneland's turf, and last time out, Flying Mohawk, like you guys have referenced, I mean, he came back and ran pretty big off of that effort. But I'm a big fan of Street DeVoe, but she's not off to a good start. Retribution ran okay for her, but I think she's had at least two, maybe three favorites already come up a little short. Maybe she could turn it around. She has a couple horses in today's card, and she'll be, have horses in her before we get to this race on Saturday. But it's been a little bit of a slow start, I've noticed, for the DeVoe horses. So I'll be paying attention to see if she can get things turned around.
Before we talk the Lexington Stakes and our picks in that race, Darin, let's go over some promos and tournaments happening at TwinSpires.
Yeah, it's hard to believe, but the road to the Derby is just about done. I don't know where that time went, but it's our last money back. It features the Lexington Stakes at Keeneland on Saturday, so it's the last one on this series. Last opportunity to get your money back if you run second or third. So we certainly thank everybody for participating in this for the last 6-7 weeks, but be sure to take advantage of the last one that we have on the road to the Derby. And then we have a 25% odds boost on Keeneland as well for that card. It's going to be on your win wagers. So be sure to play with us on Saturday. All of your bets at Keeneland are win bets. If you win, are open for a 25% odds boost if you are opted in for that. So certainly have a big focus on Keeneland throughout the month of April. And then tournament-wise, heavily involved in a couple of big ones this weekend. So for starters, tomorrow we have a big qualifier, $1,000 qualifier. Kentucky Derby Betting Challenge and Grade 1 Gamble seats are up for grabs here. It's going to have hopefully at least two of each, depending on how many people buy in tomorrow. But this tournament is going to be feeding to a couple of major tournaments in the next couple of weeks. And of course, on Saturday, you can play in the Grade 1 Gamble with TwinSpires. We are participating ADW with the Grade 1 Gamble. So if you don't win your way in and you're a tournament player and you're planning on playing from home, certainly think of us at TwinSpires. We believe we have the best tournament engine out there in the game. So we encourage you to play with us. That $3,500 contest, one of the biggest ones all year, one of my personal favorites as well, the Grade 1 Gamble. So watch and wager and play along with us at TwinSpires, guys.
And to close out, we will talk about the Grade 3 Lexington, that final stop on the road to the Kentucky Derby, 20 points to the winner. Not sure if it's going to help anyone get into the field. You just never know with scratches, though. And James, I will start things off with you. This is a mile and 16th. Post time is at, let's see, 5, I believe it's, where did it go? 5:16 p.m. Eastern time.
Yeah, none of the horses in here are can be able to get in the Derby, but I do think the Lexington shapes up to be a Preakness prep. I do think, I can look at 4 horses in this field. I would be under at least consideration if they win or run well on Saturday. But I'm going to go with Hypnus. I know some speed will come out of this race, but Hypnus is a horse to me that had just his maiden win was still very, very impressive at Fairgrounds first time out. And in that race, if you watch the replay of it, Brian Hernandez guides him outside off the far turn, and he's way outside, and he just launches a huge rally. In his next 2 races, he's like in traffic I mean, he's in traffic in the Rebel. He had a really troubled trip that day where he was basically stymied until like the final 16th of a mile, and then galloped out like past everybody, really galloped out strongly. And off of that troubled trip, he was a bit of a buzz horse in the Louisiana Derby. And Brian Hernandez was saving ground. The inside seemed like the place to be, but he got to the top of the lane in traffic and just had nothing. So Kenny Peak has put blinkers on him. He's come back and drilled a bullet work. He's running him right back in this spot because I'm sure he thinks the Louisiana Derby took nothing out of him. And I look for Lee Saez to take the overland route. He is not going to be anywhere near traffic to me leaving the far turn. He's going to look the circle rivals. It's all going to be a matter if he can make up enough ground and get in on the far turn and get in position by the top of the stretch. But I'm going to look for Hypnus to rebound and prove best in Lexington.
Darin, who's your pick?
Yeah, I'd be surprised if he runs into traffic because Rolando and Touchy both ran in the Lafayette Stakes the other day, and I suspect both of these are going to be scratching out of here. I do think the scratch of Rolando does hurt Hypnus, though, because it takes a lot of the speed out of it. And that was my main knock against Hypnus is, Gosker's got speed and Prater's going to be forward. And other than that, I don't think there's
Buster could be a little bit, but
yeah, a little bit. Yeah. I don't necessarily know if the pace of this race is going to be that strong. Look, I think Prater's strictly the horse to beat. I landed on Bullard just because his first two victories I thought were very good. McCarthy's going extremely well right now, obviously with journalism. In the San Vicente, just got outrun by Barnes and Romanesque on that particular day. He's stretching out for the first time. He's going to be probably in the first flight of stalkers. And, I think he's a quality horse, and I thought he was maybe the next likeliest winner. I didn't want to pick Prater in the spot. I'm not a big fan of Gosger. If he gets bet off that race at Gulfstream, I think he might be a bit overbet. Prater's the horse to beat. I mean, he owns a win over Sovereignty, who's a major Kentucky Derby player. Obviously, he came back off an emphatic victory. My one question about this horse is, if he was really, really good, wouldn't have Chad Brown have put him in a Derby prep? I kind of look to that. Maybe they're looking to get this horse to the Preakness. That's entirely possible. But look, he's the horse to beat. Bullard, I thought, was the next most likely winner, so that was my pick. But it's not exactly a ringing endorsement on my end.
If there's one guy, though, that will skip, that will point to the Preakness, I mean,
he's done it, yeah.
Yeah, he skipped it with early voting. And,
cloud computing, too.
Yeah.
Cloud computing.
I know. As you're saying this, it feels like it's that Chad Brown Preakness runner that we don't really see.
I will say, I thought
that
Bullard was on the worst part of the track in that San Vicente. It cost him potentially second that day. And, Barnes he got the trip on the front end. But I agree. I mean, he's very dangerous. He was entered in the Rebel, but had some minor issue and scratch. So it messed up the timing as far as a potential Derby bid. But yeah, he's the type that if he wins, I fully expect to see him going to Pimlico for Michael McCarthy.
Yeah, we'll see. It'll be interesting if journalism wins the Derby, what he does.
Well, that might be the one hiccup in it.
Fly in the ointment.
Yeah.
Well, I am going to defend Gosker a little bit here. I went back and forth. I actually was almost going to pick Hypnus. I was a little concerned with Rolando coming out pace scenario wise, but I looked at Bullard, but was concerned that he was pointed toward the Rebel. Obviously, he was meant to go longer, but now coming off a little bit of a extra layoff here. So I went with Gosker coming off of that maiden win, racing at a mile. When he debuted, it was at 6 furlongs. You could tell he was meant to go longer that day. And then won at a mile, had a 120 class rating, which ranks, it's the highest last out class rating of the field, but Bullard actually has a 121 for his win in the Bob Hope. But I thought Gosker's numbers looked good to me. Can certainly see him stepping forward off of that maiden win. He had a 93 Bristnet speed figure, won by 1.5 lengths over 8 rivals. So I don't love the price that I got on the morning line here. I really thought that Hypnus actually was intriguing at 6-1, but didn't like the potential pace scenario with Hypnus being a late runner here. And he's finished 7th twice facing graded stakes company. He is dropping in class, but I went with Gosker sitting off the pace, I think is where we'll see him in this race. So that will be my top pick. But you all are certainly getting better prices with potential, I would say.
I wouldn't be surprised if Bullard goes off lower than Goscar, to be honest with you. I think they're pretty close. But Prater, listen, make no mistake about it. Prater's the horse to beat.
Yep. Yeah, he might be that Preakness runner, I think. Now that I'm looking at it closer, this seems like Chad Brown's Preakness favorite, possibly.
Could be.
We'll see. All right, well, that does it for the Road to Kentucky Derby for the jury. We've now given, I think, all of our picks for every prep race at this point. So that is it for us today. We will be back next Thursday to talk more best bets and fades, and best of luck betting this weekend.
When it comes to horse racing, you can never have too much information. With TwinSpires, you can place your bets with confidence, whether you use handicapping insights like our Brisnet speed ratings, prime power and past performances, the guidance of our experts' top picks, or just choose a name that catches your eye. Yes! No matter how you pick your horse, bet with TwinSpires. And now you can race to victory with TwinSpires tournaments.